Hello and welcome to Coast Signing Agent University. In today's episode, we are going to do a review of our notary signing agent errors, issues, concerns from Q3 of 2024. So we're going to call this 2024 Q3 NSA review. If you're new to the channel, one of our goals in presenting these videos is to provide free training to notary public signing agents. We believe it's important to provide transparency as a signing company and to partner with our notaries. When you do a good job and are knowledgeable and educated, it benefits everyone, not just yourself, not just the signing company, but signers, lenders, escrow companies, the whole community benefits. So that's our goal, is to help to provide that transparency. There's no gatekeeping here, and we provide an insider's perspective of what we see every day. We close hundreds of loans every day, and so we see really the whole gamut of different notary concerns, questions, errors. So let's get right into today's episode. So just a quick update. The volume of work has been increasing. So it seems that whenever there are discussions from the Federal Reserve that they're going to lower interest rates kind of drop because of it. And we've noticed that. So it's nowhere near how busy it was during the pandemic or COVID, but it's definitely increased over the past few months. So what does that mean to you? Well, it's exciting. It means more offers are going to come your way if you haven't already seen it. Business is going to ramp up. So that means that we need to be really prepared and get ready for increased workloads. And we need to take this opportunity to really sharpen your skills as notaries and signing agents. We're seeing errors in just the signing agent 101, notary 101 items, and they're becoming more common, even among seasoned professionals, notaries who have been doing it a long time. So now really is the time to slow down and ensure every closing is executed flawlessly, or as close as we can get. Errors are going to happen, even by the best notaries. It's just human nature, right? Things happen. Every signing is different, documents look different, and signers are different, right? And their abilities and how comfortable they're signing even. So although errors are going to happen, there are things we can do to help prevent them. And education is huge, right? Education, knowing what you're looking at, is really important. So that's the first thing that we're going to talk about. So now we're going to talk about document errors. So these are just the top errors that we see, I'd say, day in and day out. If you're not new to our channel, but if you are new, check out our other videos, because we have a lot of videos on specific documents and different errors. We even have, as far as I know, the only notary signing agent game show, which is Name That Error, where we actually show you examples of errors. And the audience, or the live class that joins, gets to participate. So check out those videos if you're interested in learning more about the different types of errors. But these are kind of the bread and butter, so to speak, of the errors that we see every day. And they're really important that we get right. These are the ones that when I ask our clients, what errors do you want me to train on? These are the ones they want me to present. So let's start with my favorite document, which is the right to cancel. So the right to cancel is a super important document. The federal government has made it so where when a signer of a primary residence refinances, they have to have a right to cancel. They have to sign a right to cancel. So the signing agent, now you might think, this form is already filled out. I don't draw up the docs. That's true. But this form is for you to ensure that all the dates are accurate. So it's really your job to make sure that the document is correct. So if the dates are pre-printed, let's look at my example here. If the dates are pre-printed, you want to make sure they're accurate and they reflect the correct dates from the day you're signing and off the rescission calendar. So let's say the documents in this example are signing September 17th, 2024. If that's accurate and it is September 17th, 2024, perfect. Leave that pre-printed date. A little tip is to have the signer initial that date, even if it's correct. Even if there's not a spot for them to initial, somewhere near that date, have them initial. Some lenders, big wholesale lenders, want that date initialed, even if it's right. So go ahead and have them initialed. Now, if that date is incorrect, have the signer cross it off and initial and put the correct date. Next comes the second date, right? Which is the one that says here, you must send the notice no later than midnight of. This is the actual rescission date, the right to cancel date. So it's the government gives the borrowers 3 business days, and they count Saturday, to cancel a refinance of a primary residence. So what's really nice is that notary signing agents can just simply search on Google 2024 or whatever year it is, rescission calendar. And those calendars are provided by different associations, and you can simply look at the date and there'll be a second date, the right to cancel date, the rescission date. So if we look at our calendars for September 17th, the right to cancel date will be September 20th. If it's pre-printed and it's accurate, initial that date, or have the signer initial, excuse me. If it's not, cross it out, put the correct date, and have the signer initial. This is critical. If there's an error on this form, some lenders require it to be re-signed using the current date of when they found that error, and that can delay funding, right? So this form, the lenders can't fund this document until after that right to cancel date. So if we have to get it re-signed using current date whenever they found out about this error, which can sometimes be a few days in advance, that's going to push the funding date out. So as a notary, as a signing agent, always keep your rescission calendar with you and slow down. When you come to the right to cancel, make it enjoyable for the signer and say, okay, let's slow down and let's make sure these dates are correct, because this is going to help prevent any funding issues, right? Signers want that new interest rate. They want the money coming back to them in the transaction. Whatever the reason why they're doing the loan, they want to make sure it funds on time, right? So does the lender, because they get paid based off of it. If they get paid, escrow gets paid, we get paid, we all get paid, right? So we need to make sure that this is dated correctly. So again, most of the time there's pre-printed dates. Sometimes these sections, these 2 dates are blank, in which case you need to make sure that the signer puts these 2 dates. The top date, which is the transaction date, the day you're signing, make sure they initial, and then the actual right to cancel date, the second date, which is going to be 3 business days from the day they signed. Saturdays are included, Sundays are not included, and federal holidays. Now, I don't celebrate the holidays, so I don't know when those are. So what do? Always have my rescission calendar, right? You can pull it up on your phone. As a signing agent, I would say you print a copy out, keep it in your notary book, keep it in your journal. Always reference it. Our quality control team, when they are making sure notaries did their job correctly, they always have a right to cancel calendar on their desks right above where their workspace. That way they can verify, because even though they see it, tens and sometimes hundreds of times a day, you need to make sure it's done correctly. And we do too. So get that rescission calendar. And just to emphasize, if dates are incorrect, have the signer cross it off, put the correct date and initial. This is really critical. Do not have the signer sign where it says, I wish to cancel. That is a critical part of this. If you do, what's the point of signing this form, right? So you want to make sure they sign where it says acknowledgement of receipt. It's going to be the second signature, the last signature on the page. And the date there 99% of the time is going to correspond with that top date. There are some exceptions if it is a split signing and the signers are not signing together, but we'll cover that in a future video. So most of the time, if all signers are signing together, that signature date is going to match this top date right here. Remember, all dates that are added or corrected need to be initialed. And you might as well just have the signer initial even the pre-printed ones because some lenders require it. So there you go. That's the right to cancel. Very important document. All right, next up is the signature name affidavit. So this form may include aliases that the signer has previously used. This also provides a sample of the signer's signature for the lender. They're typically on this form, there's different formatting. Just like with the right to cancel, there's different formats, but this is a good standard version that you're going to see time and time again as a notary signing agent. So the top space is the name that's going to be on the document. So in this case, it's Sam Signer. That's the name that's going to be on all the loan documents. So Sam's going to sign a sample right there of his signature, the way he's been signing throughout the whole set. Now, if there are aliases under the AKA statement, very common errors is that the notaries don't have the signers sign for these. You have to sign for these. It's important for the signer to sign off for those aliases if they're listed. Sometimes these are blank, and that's great, right? They just have to sign the sample, notarize it, move on. But if there are AKAs or aliases underneath that sample signature up at the top, they have to sign for those names if they are known by those names. So let's look at these variations here. So we have Samuel Signer. He's known by that name. He's going to sign for it. And you can see that the signature is a little different, right? It looks like there's a Samuel instead of just a Sam. Let's go to the next one is Sam T. Signer. So the signer agrees with that, Sam T. Signer. And he signs for it right there. The next one is Samuel Timothy Signer, and it appears that's his name. You're going to know from the ID, right? He's going to sign Samuel Timothy Signer. So the lenders will want the signer to sign exactly as the alias says if they're known by that. Now let's drop down to the last one to see what happens when they're not. So this alias is Samuel Thomas Signer. Sam Signer is Samuel Timothy Signer. He's not known by that name. That's not his name. So when that happens on that signature line, he can write never known as and then initial that statement. You do not want to leave an alias line blank. If they're not known by that name, have the signer write that verbiage, never known as, and initial. So this is how we complete this form. Again, there are different formatting for different lenders and different doc drawing companies, but this is a real common one. So you want to have the signer go through, sign for the names they're known as, exactly as that signature line says. And if they're not known by a name, the simple phrase never known as and initial that phrase will suffice. So this one's another common one. I'm seeing this lately every day. Okay. Next up is the Patriot Act. Patriot Acts are in most sets of loan docs. This is a form that's to be completed by you, the notary signing agent, using the identification presented to verify the signer's identity. So this is a federal law that requires the signers to present ID when they're getting the loans, right? That makes sense. It's a kind of a big deal, right? So some of the formatting and the doc drawing require different things. So some forms require one form of identification for you to verify, and some require two. You're going to see what forms is requiring of you here at the very top. So in this case, it's requiring two forms of ID presented to you to review. This is important because if you don't include both of those forms, this will come back later. It may come back as a funding requirement, or it may come back as like a post closing audit. One way or another, that second ID needs to be presented and this form needs to be completed. So just do it right there that first time you meet with the signer, because you're verifying their ID anyways as a notary, right? So that's a big requirement. Again, not all lender or doc drawing document formats require two, but they'll require at least one. But always check the top. The instructions will tell you. So you want to complete this form and the specifics in their entirety. So place of issuance, ID number, date of birth, issuance, expiration dates, and photo. Complete that whole section. Double check it to make sure it's correct. Do the same with the second form of ID, and the other can be a variety of different items. You can see here. So there's all these different options. If they don't have any of those other ID options, other might be a utility bill, something of that nature, an insurance card. Make sure it's completed to the best of the ID's ability, all that it presents on that ID, the information. And next up is the signature. An error that I see often is that the notary will have the borrower sign, but the signature line verbiage kind of gives it away because it says signature date. All right, I can see how a borrower might sign that. But what about name and title, right? So sometimes you'll see it and it'll be the signer's signature and they'll put their name and then the title will be like borrower or the title be blank. This is for you to fill out as a notary signing agent. So complete the form, sign your name, date the form, include your notary name. So that's the name on your stamp and your title. Now, in past videos and classes, I've said you can put notary public because that is your official title. And then some notaries will say, well, you're not allowed to use the title notary public because it's not a notarial act. Okay, that's fine. If you are uncomfortable putting notary public, just put signing agent or signing agent notary. But you want to make sure you put your title in there. Okay, very important document. This is another one we see all the time. Okay, so let's talk now about package return issues. This is one that will give any escrow agent a heart attack and any signing company a broken heart over things like this. It's all in your hands to not have us be very sad. So let's go over it. So what is it? What are the requirements? Some files require the notary signing agent to provide scans before shipping the original documents back to the client. And I'm seeing that more and more. When I first started out as a notary, oh my gosh, 15 years ago now, I didn't provide scans very often. It wasn't something that was required. I did thousands of signings and I didn't provide scans routinely. Now I see that it's a pretty big requirement. So you're going to get jobs and it's going to say scans required. That's not optional, right? Maybe 1 out of every 100 scan backs is optional. If it says on your order that scans are required, and here's a little image of what it might look like. This is how it looks on my end on the SnapDocs portal. It'll say scan backs required. If it has that, don't overlook this step. Clients need it. And there's lots of reasons why a client might need it. To get ahead of the processing, so preparing for funding and recording. It also helps escrow or the signing company quality control the documents. That way they're perfect, ready to go for funding. And if there's any errors, we can get ahead of them before that funding time comes. So it's really critical that the scans are provided if a client requests them. And some clients have strict deadlines for uploading scans. So make sure to upload on time. And SnapDocs is really neat, and other portals have this as well. But SnapDocs shows here the clients can actually enter a deadline. So for this client, it just says ASAP before same day shipping cutoff. So if the file can make cutoff time, they want the scans before then and then dropped in FedEx. And this also provides further instructions. It talks about how they need scan backs before dropping at FedEx, if possible, or the very next day, depending on when it signs, right, the signing. And they want a scanned copy of ID, but they don't want you to print the ID. So those are real instructions from an actual escrow agent. So if it has that deadline and instructions, follow them. If you're unable to meet that deadline, you need to communicate with that contracting company in advance and then upload the scans as soon as possible. Be reasonable when giving your ETA, right? Because I have some clients that they'll say, when are the scans coming? If I say they'll be uploaded within the hour, 59 minutes after my email is sent, they're going to be asking me. So if you really can't do it within the hour, just provide as accurate a ETA as possible. And I know I'm somebody who I'll say, I'm going to get it out as soon as possible because that's really what I want, right? But this job, traffic, um, scanner issues, printing issues, signers, every signer is different. This job doesn't always allow that, right? So just try to be reasonable and modest and give as accurate ETA as possible. Of course, like we discussed earlier, things are going to happen. Things are going to be delayed. So what do we do in that case? Communication, 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 right? It's all about letting our clients know what's happening when it's happening. That way they know we haven't ghosted them, right? So here's some tips and really things that are going to make our clients really happy if we can do them when it comes to uploading. So when we upload our scans, we want to limit the number of scan backs to really no more than 3 attachments. So sometimes because of the size of the file, we have to break it up into a smaller scan. So say a package is 100 pages, sometimes you have to break it up into 25-page increments. Well, there are free tools that allow you to combine, merge, and then compress files, right? So it might have been a super big file and you couldn't upload it, but then you combined all your attachments, merged them, and now it's even bigger, but then you can compress the files. And Adobe actually provides a free online tool that allows you to do that, combine, merge, and compress. Critical. If you're like me, though, I need more than just the website. I need the app. So I download and purchase the Adobe DC. I believe it's like $30 a month. Go on Adobe and check it out. I'd say it's worth it. I use it every single day. You can do all sorts of cool things with Adobe. We'll have a whole video on these different PDF softwares. But I suggest if you're a signing agent and you're doing it full time or that's your goal, invest in Adobe. It will be worth it. Trust me. Also, you want to make sure your scans are clear and high resolution. That's where the Adobe comes in for compressing, because high resolution scans make the file large, but you can shrink that package on Adobe or these other PDF programs. That way you can have high resolution and a smaller package. And you want to make sure, this is a big one. Just yesterday, I had to rearrange a package. So make sure the scan is in order. If you don't do that, escrow is going to get frustrated, or title, or whoever the contracting company is, because they're going to have to rearrange it. And rearranging a PDF, I do it rather quickly on a standard set of docs where I actually have kind of memorized the order just from repetition, right? But I did a file where it was a mess. All the pages were like reversed order and mixed up. And this was like, I believe it was like a commercial real estate transaction. So the documents weren't something that I see every day. And it took me about an hour to do. And the client was frustrated because they didn't want to do it. They're maybe not as fast as I am at doing these things because I do it all the time, right? So I had to rearrange it and it was a real pain. So when you get back from the signing, you're about to scan, make sure that they're in order. If you move things around at the signing, put them back where they belong. Make sure that page 1 through 12 is in chronological order. 1, 2, 3, 4. You know the drill. It's going to make it easier for everyone to process those scans. And this is just a quick note. The last bullet point here. Do not email scanbacks without encrypting the files with a password. If you just email scanbacks, no password, that's kind of scary, right? Because those documents have our signer's personal and private information. It's sensitive information, stuff you wouldn't want out into the web, right? And these days, with the amount of wire fraud there is, we have to do everything we can to protect our signers. We're notary publics, right? We're public servants. We do that when it comes to verifying identity. We do that when it comes to signer consent. Let's do the same with our web presence as well. And again, you might ask, well, what about a password? I don't know how to password protect. Adobe or any other PDF program will help you with that. But if you purchase Adobe DC, and I'm not getting paid to advertise for that, even though I should because I love it, but make sure to download that if this is going to be like a full-time gig for you. It'll be worth it. And you can, like I said, you can create passwords, password protect documents. So those are the basics of scanning requirements. It's really important if a client asks for scans to follow these tips and tricks. Next up, now we're going to talk about shipping. So most real estate transactions require same-day shipment due to the time-sensitive nature of the documents. So when same-day drop-off is not possible because of when the signing signed, right? If it is signing at 4 o'clock and drop-off is at 4:30, you're probably not going to make it. You need to make sure that the next day the docs are dropped. So this is like within 24 hours or sooner, we need to get real estate documents dropped to guarantee the next business day delivery. Escrow or the contracted company, they're going to send you a priority overnight label, right? Which means it's going to get there the next day in the morning, most of the time. And it's really your responsibility to know your local drop-off locations and cutoff times. UPS, FedEx, they all have websites that you can easily type in your zip code, and they'll give you all the locations within a certain range. I will give you a note, though. You want to be really careful when using drop boxes or non-FedEx UPS office locations. I'll give you an example. Dollar General, Walgreens, Office Depot. Those locations sometimes only call FedEx for pickup after they've received a certain number of packages. So they cannot always guarantee that those docs are going to get shipped that day for next day delivery. In fact, we had a notary who was not a new notary. She always dropped her docs off at Dollar General, small town, early cutoff times. The other day, okay, so let's orient myself. So it was on a Thursday. Today's a Wednesday. So last Thursday, the notary dropped docs at Dollar General. Monday rolls around, escrow's asking where those docs are. This is the rate lock is expiring yesterday, and so the docs need to fund on the 17th, which is a Tuesday now. Notary was like, oh, I drop docs at Dollar General every day. And I said, sometimes they hold packages until there's a certain number. That way their excuse is, well, we want to make sure that FedEx has, it's worth their drive to Dollar General. So those docs were held for 4 days and weren't shipped. And the notary then decided or talked to them and they said, yeah, we'd hold on to packages until we think it's worth it for the FedEx driver. So notary ran to Dollar General, picked up those docs, scanned them, and then dropped them at another location that picks up every day. And she confirmed it. So it's really iffy when it comes to drop boxes or non-brand office locations. Sometimes there are only options. If you're someone in a town where there is no FedEx office or UPS office, you have to. When that happens, confirm with the management there if FedEx picks up every day. If they don't, ask them to call FedEx that day to pick up, and FedEx will most of the time. It's not really FedEx's call to not go. Sometimes those offices will say, don't come today. There's not enough packages. Regardless, no matter where you drop, you want to be able to receive a shipping receipt. That's why drop boxes are so iffy, right? Because you don't get a receipt. What if the drop box is out of commission? What if they don't pick up there anymore? That has happened to me many a time. So you want a place that you can get a receipt and just upload that right onto the portal, just like you would a scan back. Then everyone can see and you covered yourself. And that's your proof that you did your job, right? And then this is funny because this one is more of just like a little bit of a pet peeve that I have because I do certain reports that require tracking. And when you as a notary are closing out an order on SnapDocs, you want to be sure to add the tracking information right when you close that signing. When you add the status saying it's signed successfully, add that tracking information. And most of the time you have that label right already. You just maybe are driving and you don't want to take a minute to write down that number or put it in your phone. But I'm begging you to do that because it makes my life a million times easier and it makes my reports a lot faster when that tracking number is in there. So when you add the signing status, take a second, look at that label, add the tracking number. Don't put to follow or XXX or what also people put is 1, 2, 3, 4, because I'm going to have to now go and pull up that label and type that in, or anybody who uses the portal, right? So signing company, title, escrow. So make sure to do that. That's just a little gripe that I had to throw in there. And just to kind of round this out, delayed or lost packages can be costly. There can be rate locks involved. There can be extensions that need to be filed. And sometimes whole transactions get thrown off because of it. I'm currently dealing with that, with one package that FedEx lost. Notary didn't do anything wrong, but FedEx lost. Because of that, escrows having to waive their fee, notaries having to waive their fee, brokers having to reduce their fee. So that has nothing to do with, say, a notary. They did everything right, but you can see that the how costly it can be when these things happen. So make sure that it isn't because of you that those FedEx or UPS delays happen, right? Make sure that you do your job, drop those docs off. You're going to mess up sometimes. You're going to forget to drop docs. You're going to miss cutoff because you were rushing. Kind of like what I mentioned at the beginning, slow it down. This job is tough because to make money, you do have to book yourself. And sometimes you are going to run around like a chicken with your head cut off. You're going to be going so fast. But when it comes to these kind of milestones of signings, right, you want to slow down, make sure you have the right label, make sure to enter the tracking number, make sure to obtain a receipt. You do that, you will significantly reduce the number of issues and errors on your files that happen because of going too fast. So those are my little tips and tricks when it comes to this. Okay, last section, we're going to talk about a few questions on documents that we see day in and day out. And we're going to talk about how to deal with them. Okay, so first, these are some frequently asked questions. We're going to talk about trustee verbiage. And I'm sorry to say that when it comes to trustee verbiage, every client is different. So I can't really give you a always sign like this, but I can tell you what I do at signings and what we advise our notaries to do and what we do every day when this question comes up. How should we have the borrower sign? So let's talk about what this is if you're really new. Occasionally when a property is held in a trust, so the signers put the property in a trust, the lender may allow it to be refinanced under that trustee vesting. So in such cases, the signature lines on the documents will include some trustee verbiage, and they're going to indicate the signer's capacity as a trustee of that trust. Like I said, every lender is different, and sometimes even every file is different for a specific lender. Although most lenders most lenders or escrow have a blanket, we want trustee, we don't. But these are the options. And we always want to confirm with the contracting company, whoever hired you, scream until you get an answer when it comes to trustee verbiage, if there's trustee verbiage on your docs. But let's look at example A, B, and C. So example A, some lenders require the borrower to only sign their name without the trustee designation. So actually, I switched it up. Example A is example B right here. Oops, that didn't pass my quality control. But let's switch that. So example A is actually example B. So it's just the signer's name right here. Okay, so that is when lenders only want their name. And so when they say signature only, that's what they're going to refer to. Now, let's look at actual example A, which is example B in my checklist. Some lenders want the addition of the title trustee here in sample A, right here. So you can see the signature, comma, trustee. So signers are going to add their title trustee. And then C, which is the same on my checklist as it is in example, thank goodness. Although this is less common, sometimes they ask for the full verbiage to be signed. So we have the signature, and then the signer writes, comma, trustee of the, in this case, it's the SS Family Trust, dated 12/7/2014. So again, I wish I had a blanket statement that would always cover it, but you just have to ask. And so that's really where you review the order that you're provided. So if, say, you're on SnapDocs, look at the client information, look at the special signing notes, and if there's no info on trustee there, ask the person who hired you, right? So go in the portal, put a message, and ask how they want the signers to sign. Now, here's another kind of advanced trick is sometimes on the loan docs, there are instructions. So my favorite lenders will say in either the special closing instructions or on a separate sheet, they'll give you the trustee signatures, what they want. When that's there, that's awesome, right? Because it'll be clear as day. Sometimes it's hidden in the closing instructions in the package, which is typically towards the top of the loan signing package. Either way, when in doubt, ask, 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 ask. A little tip is, say you asked, but you haven't got a response and you're at the signing, have them just sign their name and then call before you leave and ask again and see if you can get an answer, clear answer, yes or no when it comes to trustee. If you've had them just sign their name, but they want trustee, the signers can go back in and add trustee, right? So it's better at first to leave it just the name until you get clear confirmation. One time, here's a little story for you. One time, I had a 6 loan signing. So this borrower owned lots of properties and he was refinancing them all. And it was in a trust and they wanted every signature to be the full signature line, just like example C right here. It took forever. I thought this was going to be an easy, it was probably like $400, and it was not. It was very challenging, but it was a good experience because now I know how to do that one. So again, sorry I can't say what you should do every time, but those are the options that we normally are given, and we need to just make sure to confirm. Okay, next up on the right side of our slide, let's talk about name on the ID versus name on the documents. I'm having this come up a lot lately. So the ID, this is the kind of general notary ID rule. The ID provided must include the same name on the documents or more, but never less or different. So the ID can have more than what's on the documents, not less, and not different. Okay, that's the general notary rule. So you look at the ID. Is it more than what's on the documents? Sure. Maybe the documents only say Sam Signer, but his ID says Samuel Timothy Signer. That's a go. But what if it says Samuel Thomas Signer and the documents say Samuel Timothy Signer? Ooh, different, right? Different. Or what if, let's do a reverse of it, what if on the ID it says Sunny Signer, but on the documents it says Samuel Signer. Different, right? So the ID can have more, not less, not different. Okay. Now, what if the name on the ID differs from the name on the documents? It's less or it's different. Well, first, let's request additional identification. Do they have a passport? Do they have a military ID? Do they have the ID that falls within your state's handbook as proper ID that you can use to verify identity? If they do, use that instead of the driver's license or whatever they first presented to you that was wrong. Now, what if the signer doesn't, right? If the signer cannot provide sufficient evidence that satisfies you according to your state's regulation, you're going to want to check with the contracting company to see if credible witnesses are allowed. Now, they may be allowed for notary purposes, right? So in California, a signer can provide 2 credible witnesses who can vouch for the signer and say, yep, that's them, that's the same person. But some states don't allow credible witnesses. And on top of that, some lenders and escrow underwriters do not allow for credible witnesses. So if you're going to use credible witnesses, you've got to get authorization from the contracting company. And then if that's title escrow, they'll tell you, or if it's a signing company, they'll ask their client, or they may know their client's rules. Just off the top of my head, I know several big escrow companies that they just tell us credible witnesses are not allowed unless we get special approval. So check with the person who hired you. It should be okay in lots of cases, or if it can get approved ahead of time, and then you can go ahead with a credible witness signing if your state allows it. So that's on you, and that you really need to know your notary handbook. If you don't have one, go to your state secretary of state or whatever entity issues your notary commission and download that handbook and get familiar with it. That's the last bullet point right there, is just be familiar with your state's rules regarding identification and satisfactory evidence. Every state's a little bit different. All right, last up is the witness states. This is kind of not a new issue for us, but I've been seeing it a lot lately. So some states require witnesses for real estate transactions and security deeds associated with home loans. And these are the states that we've been having trouble with. So witness signatures are required for Connecticut security deeds or deeds in general, Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, South Carolina. If those are your states, it's your responsibility to know those requirements and confirm if witnesses will be present. Now, when it comes to working with the signing company, oftentimes our clients will tell us, hey, witnesses are required. For example, Florida. We do a lot of work in Florida. Florida, 2 witnesses are required. If there are signature lines included on the document, notary may act as a witness, but there must be another witness as well. And they must write the witnesses' names down and their addresses. So a Florida notary, it's your job to know these requirements. The signing company will most likely give you a little information, but even if they don't, as the notary commissioned in that state, it's your responsibility to know. And so you can communicate this with the signing company if there's no notes on the order and you know, hey, this is a Louisiana property. This is a Georgia property. We need witnesses. So take that initiative and kind of go above and beyond. You're going to make a partner with whoever's hiring you when you save them from recording issues later on down the line. So we can kind of quickly go over the different states' requirements. So let's talk about Connecticut. 2 witnesses are required. Notary may act as 1 witness. So we just need another one. Georgia, 2 witnesses are required and notary may not act as a witness. So we've got to get 2 impartial over 18 witnesses. Florida, like we talked about, 2 are required. If there are signature lines on the document, notary may act as a witness. The witnesses also have to add their names and addresses on that document. Louisiana, 2 witnesses are required. Notary may not act as a witness. And South Carolina, 2 witnesses are required. Notary may act as a witness unless the property is outside of South Carolina. The subject property is outside South Carolina, in which case we need 2 non-notary witnesses. Now, what about witness fees? If you're asked to provide a witness, the typical witness fee is about $25 to $50. So you can request that from the signing company or the client that is hiring you out. So you bring someone along if the signer does not have a witness. But I always check first with the signer if they have a witness who can be present. If they can't, that's when you want to bring a witness with you, and you can request an additional fee. All right, that's the bulk of it. So let's just really quickly talk about how you can become a favorite notary signing agent. And I would say the number one is that communication is key. So communication all along the way. There is no dumb question. So if you have a question, ask it. If you even have an inkling of a question, ask it. If you need to verify anything, do it. Review order instructions thoroughly. Review the special instructions, scan back requirements, client instructions. When you first get an order, that should be the first thing you do. Now, I'll be honest, we're guilty of it. Our instructions on Coast to Coast site is lengthy. We are always in the process of editing them, but it's better to take a little bit of time and review them, highlight, make notes, and ask those questions because those instructions are there for a reason. So although Coast to Coast is always actively trying to cut down on instructions, just think of it as an education tool, right? Just another way that you can kind of broaden your knowledge on the different clients and different requirements. Triple check your documents. This one, you see it in almost every video if you're a Coast to Coast Signing Agent University fan. I say there's a 3-step check when it comes to signing loan documents or any kind of real estate documents. As the signer is signing those documents, you want to make sure they're signing correctly. So you give them the form, they give it back to you, review the form. Before you leave, do one more check. And this is one that I vocalize to the signer. So I'll have all the documents. I'll say, okay, we signed everything. Give me just a few minutes to make sure the documents look perfect. And then I go through them. At first, it's awkward. You have signers staring at you and you're worried, oh my goodness, what if I miss something? How embarrassing. Don't be embarrassed. This is critical. And truly, it instills confidence in the signers because they know you did a second check. And if you miss something, no need to be embarrassed. Just simply hand the form back to them and say, hey, we missed something. That's why I do this triple check. And then get it corrected, put it back in. Now, the third check is before scanning and shipping. So before you scan, do another check. Make sure you stamped everything. Make sure everything's signed, dated. This is when if you find you made an error, you can run back to the signer. That's a 3 check. Now, if you're real paranoid like me, you might do a 4th check, right? But a minimum of a 3-point quality control check. And then the last tip here, kind of going along with our discussion today, know your local shipping drop-off location and obtain a receipt. So know when their cutoff is, know if they have extended cutoff, know if they have weekend, Saturday service. That's really important. That's another way that you're going to be able to also schedule your day and get those documents out. So where there's no delay in funding and recording of a loan. So there you go. These are some of my quick tips on how to become a favorite. You do these, you're going to become many signing company and escrow agents' favorite. Making partnerships is how you make money in this business. So if you just have that in your mind that your goal isn't the money, the goal is to make the partnerships, I promise you the money's going to come. All right. Well, if you liked this video and if you want more free notary signing agent training, check out our YouTube channel at Coast to Coast University, Notary University. If you want more videos like this, of course, like this one, make a comment, and subscribe. If you want a daily rescission calendar sent to you and any tips and tricks as well as invites to our live classes, follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at C2C_signings. And if you have any requests or questions for upcoming videos, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at training@c2csignings.com. We're so grateful you took the time to watch and hear me blab about notary signing agent stuff. We hope you have a happy signing and come back and watch more of our videos.